Let's start with the siege engines that look almost adorable on paper, and slowly work our way toward the weapons that turned entire cities into slow-motion horror films. For most of history, war wasn't glorious cavalry charges or dramatic duels. It was a bunch of very tired people sitting behind walls, hoping the army outside would get bored and go home, while the army outside spent all of its creativity figuring out how to turn that city into a blender. In this video, we're counting down the most terrifying siege weapons ever built. Not because they were the biggest or the fanciest, but because of what they did to the people trapped on the other side of the wall. By the time we get to number 1, you'll see why the scariest siege weapon wasn't made of wood, metal, or fire at all. Number 8. Battering Rams and Siege Towers, the walking skyscrapers of doom. Let's start simple. You're a defender on top of a medieval wall. You've got a bow, a bucket of rocks, maybe a pot of boiling oil if your budget is good this year. Off in the distance, the enemy army arrives. They march, they shout, they bang on their shields. Very intimidating. Then you see it. Not a dragon. Not some magical artifact. A building. A giant wooden tower on wheels, slowly creaking its way towards your wall, covered in wet hide so you can't burn it. And right behind it, a squad of men walking with a massive tree trunk, hanging on chains. Congratulations. You're being introduced to siege towers and battering rams. The battering ram is as subtle as it sounds. Take a tree. Wrap the tip in iron, hang it from a frame, slam it into a gate until something breaks. Every hit is a message. We're not going home. We're not running out of ammo. And sooner or later, your front door is going to be firewood. Inside the siege tower, meanwhile, soldiers climb stairs like they're going up an evil apartment block. Archers firing down on your walls. Crossbowmen picking off anyone who gets too curious. And at the very top, a drawbridge, just waiting to slam down onto your parapet. If you're standing on the wall, you can literally watch your future approaching at walking speed. It's like seeing an elevator slowly descend toward your floor, except when the doors open, 30 guys with swords run out and ruin your day. People imagine medieval warfare as chaotic and fast. Siege towers and rams are the opposite. Slow, methodical, relentless. You have hours, sometimes days, to think about the fact that when that tower reaches the wall, your city becomes a hallway fight. And the worst part, if they got those towers close enough, it usually meant the army outside had already cleared your moats, your spikes, your traps. They were telling you, in wood and rope, we've solved every puzzle you built. This is the final door. Number 7. Greek fire, the flamethrower that floated. Now let's talk about something that feels suspiciously like cheating. It's the 7th century. You're a sailor attacking the Byzantine capital of Constantinople. You've got ships, swords, maybe some flaming arrows. You know how fire works. It burns ships. You avoid it. Easy. Then the defenders bring out pipes. From the walls and from the prows of their ships, Byzantine crews wheel out brass tubes and odd-looking pumps. You laugh. What are they going to do? Yell at you through them? They start pumping. And suddenly, a jet of liquid fire shoots out, arcs through the air, and lands on your ship. No problem, right? You just splash water on it. Except, this fire doesn't care. It clings to the wood. It spreads across the water. Some of it lands on your clothes and keeps burning while you jump into the sea. You have just met Greek fire. We still don't know the exact recipe, which is a great sign when you're on the receiving end. But we know enough. It was a flammable liquid, launched under pressure like an ancient flamethrower, and it could burn on water. Byzantine crews mounted these siphons on ships and on city walls. Enemy fleets would sail in, confident in their numbers, only to watch the sea itself turn into a floating layer of napalm. If you're in a wooden ship, with tar and rope and canvas everywhere, there is no worse nightmare than fire that leaps from boat to boat, sticks to everything, and cannot be put out with the one thing you have a lot of, water. It wasn't just destructive, it was psychological warfare. Rumors spread that Greek fire was magical, demonic, blessed by God, cursed by God, take your pick. All you knew was, if you attacked Constantinople by sea, there was a chance your entire fleet would turn into a floating bonfire in about 3 minutes. In modern terms, this wasn't just a weapon. It was a nope button for naval assaults. Number 6. Trebuchets, medieval gravity cannons. Next up is the internet's favorite siege engine, the Trebuchet. Yes, the big medieval catapult thing that physics nerds are weirdly in love with. But if you lived inside a besieged city, this machine was not quirky. It was a nightmare generator. Here's how it works. Giant wooden frame, long throwing arm, heavy counterweight on one side, sling on the other. Crank the arm down, load a massive stone, release, and let gravity do the rest. A good trebuchet could throw stones weighing as much as a small car, over hundreds of meters, with enough force to smash towers, walls, and anyone unlucky enough to be underneath. From inside the city, you'd hear the sequence. The creak of wood as the crew hauls the arm down. The brief, horrible silence. The thump as they release. The whooshing sound of a boulder cutting through the air. Impact. Every single time. And rocks weren't the only ammunition. Commanders got creative. Rotting animal carcasses, diseased human corpses, barrels of filth, even messages, threats, and gifts launched just to mess with your head. Imagine you're already dealing with close, overcrowding, limited water, fear of starvation. Then suddenly, dead cows and plague victims start raining from the sky into your drinking wells. Nice. One famous English trebuchet was nicknamed Warwolf. It was so huge and expensive that when the Scots tried to surrender before it was finished, the English king reportedly refused because he wanted to test it. Imagine being in that castle. Good news, everyone. The enemy wants to surrender. Cool, so we can go home. Haha, no. The king wants to see his new toy work first. If artillery is about breaking things, trebuchets were about breaking morale. They told everyone inside, we can hit you whenever we want, wherever we want, and there's nothing you can do except listen and wait. Number 5. Plague catapults. When the ammo was people, if trebuchets weren't bad enough when throwing rocks, let's talk about when they started throwing people. Throughout history, plenty of armies realized something horrible. Dead bodies make really good psychological weapons. You're a defender in a walled city. It's been weeks. Food is running low. There's no sewage system doing you any favors. Then, one night, you hear something thump on the roof. You go up to look. It's not a rock. It's not a piece of timber. It's a corpse. Arms twisted, face bloated, rotting, crawling with flies. You push it off in disgust, and then another one lands. And another. Welcome to the era of plague and corpse catapults. One famous example comes from the 14th century, when Mongol forces besieged the Crimean city of Kaffa. According to some accounts, when their own troops began dying of disease, the besiegers simply loaded the bodies into catapults and launched them over the walls. Best case scenario for the attackers. Disease spreads inside the city. Defenders weaken, resistance collapses. Worst case, even if the disease doesn't spread, the defenders are still dealing with rotting bodies falling into their streets, wells, and markets. It's hard to keep morale up when your daily to-do list includes: don't starve, don't get hit by rocks, please remove the infected corpses from the town square. Again, this wasn't just a physical attack. It was biological and psychological warfare combined. Contamination of water and food supplies, overwhelming the capacity to bury the dead, constant reminders that the enemy is willing to use your own species as ammunition. Modern laws of war call this kind of thing illegal. Back then, they called it Tuesday. Number 4. Giant bombards and super cannons. The end of the wall era. For thousands of years, stone walls were the gold standard of defense. You build thick, high masonry. You sit on top with bows and boiling oil. You feel pretty good about life. Then gunpowder shows up and says, nice walls. Would be a shame if physics happened to them. Enter the giant bombard. These were enormous early cannons. Huge tubes of cast bronze or iron, sometimes big enough for a person to crawl into, mounted on crude carriages or wooden frames. They fired. Stone balls weighing hundreds of kilos, later, massive iron cannonballs, at short ranges with ridiculous destructive power. Logistically, they were a nightmare. Dragged by teams of oxen, roads had to be reinforced or built just so they could move. Crews risked being killed if the gun exploded, which it did sometimes. But if you were behind the wall they were aimed at, none of that mattered. Every shot was an event. The fuse lit, everyone nearby plugging their ears, the ground shaking, a thunderclap echoing across the battlefield. And then, somewhere along your wall, a chunk of masonry the size of a house disintegrates. You can hear the structure weakening over time, cracks spreading, stones shifting, towers sagging. During the 1453 siege of Constantinople, the Ottoman army famously used massive bombards to pound the ancient Theodosian walls that had shrugged off attacks for 1,000 years. But stone doesn't care about your reputation. Under sustained bombardment, even legendary defenses come down. Once those walls start to crumble, everything changes. Defenders are forced into desperate repairs. Men fill gaps with barrels, earth, anything. Every new hit sprays them with stone splinters. The psychological effect is huge. For the first time in history, people realize there might not be such a thing as an unbreakable city anymore. The era of the medieval fortress is over, and it ends with a bang. Several, actually. Number 3. Huacha and rocket arrow carts, fireworks that kill you. Let's leave Europe for a bit and visit 15th century Korea, where someone looked at regular arrows and said, "These are cool, but what if they screamed and exploded?" Enter the Huacha, a Korean multiple rocket launcher that looks like a wooden cart with way too many holes in it. Each hole holds a rocket-propelled arrow, a wooden shaft, a sharp tip, a small rocket tube at the back, maybe even an explosive or incendiary head. On its own, one arrow is annoying, maybe deadly if you're unlucky. The Huacha doesn't fire one. It fires a couple hundred at once. Picture a group of enemy soldiers advancing toward the walls. Shields up, drums pounding, feeling confident. The defenders roll a Huacha into place, light the fuses, and suddenly an entire volley of screaming rockets launches into the sky, arcing toward the attackers like a swarm of angry comets. From the ground, it looks like the air itself splits. Trails of smoke, whistling flames, then impact. Men drop. Shields catch fire. Formations fragment as panicked soldiers try to get away from the burning rain. It's not as precise as a sniper shot. That's not the point. The Huacha is area denial in wooden form. You don't have to hit a specific person. You just have to turn a chunk of the battlefield into something nobody wants to stand in. If you're on the receiving end, you suddenly go from, "We are brave warriors marching into glory," to, "We are sticks being fed into a very loud, very bright blender." Modern multiple rocket launchers still work on the same concept. Lots of projectiles, quickly saturating an area, terrifying to anyone underneath. The Huacha was doing that centuries ago, with wood, paper, and gunpowder, powered by pure hatred and a very bored engineer. Number 2. Mining and underground explosions, when the floor betrays you. So far, most of these weapons have attacked walls from the outside. Let's talk about the ones that attack from below. You're a medieval defender, once again. The good news, the enemy hasn't breached the gate. The towers haven't reached you. The trebuchets are annoying, but the walls are holding. Then one night, as you're standing near a section of wall, you feel something strange. The ground is humming. You put your ear to the stone and hear it, a faint scraping, somewhere deep beneath you. The enemy isn't just outside your city, they're under it. Siege mining is as simple and horrifying as it sounds. Attackers dig tunnels under walls or towers, shore up the tunnel with wooden beams, then either set those beams on fire to collapse the tunnel and bring the wall down, or, later in history, pack the space with gunpowder and blow it sky high. To stop them, defenders try countermining, digging their own tunnels to intercept, fight, or flood the enemy. So somewhere in the dark, under your feet, teams of men are hacking at earth, listening, guessing how close they are to each other. Sometimes they break through into the opposing tunnel and end up fighting in cramped, torchlit dirt corridors, where there's no room to swing a sword properly, air is thin, and everyone is one unlucky pickaxe strike away from a cave-in. And if they don't find the tunnel in time, one day, without warning, it happens. A roar, the ground jolts, a tower near you jumps up and then collapses like it's made of sand. Men, stone, and earth vanish into a new crater. In later eras, especially during World War I, this idea gets upgraded with industrial quantities of explosives. Soldiers sitting in trenches would hear months of quiet digging under no man's land. Then, at a predetermined moment, a mine containing tons of explosives detonates, erasing a section of the front line and everyone in it. The terror here isn't just the explosion. It's the realization that walls don't guarantee safety, height doesn't guarantee safety, even solid ground cannot be trusted. When the enemy can literally remove the piece of earth you're standing on, nowhere feels secure. Number 1. Starvation and psychological siege. When time is the weapon. All the machines we've talked about so far are terrifying. Towers, fire, cannons, rockets, mines. But historically, the deadliest siege weapon wasn't made of wood, stone, or metal. It was made of time. Strip away the fancy engines, and almost every siege comes down to one strategy. We'll wait until everyone in there is too hungry, sick, or broken to keep fighting. Block the roads, cut the food, poison the wells, burn the crops. Then sit outside and let the calendar do your killing for you. From the defender's side, this is pure psychological torture. At first, everything seems manageable. Rations are cut a little, people grumble, but the walls are still strong. Weeks pass. The markets are empty. Bread is mostly sawdust and hope. Horses disappear, then dogs, then cats. People start quietly burying loved ones at night because admitting how many are dying during the day might spark a riot. Disease joins the party. Cramped living conditions, weak immune systems, contaminated water. Inside the walls, it's no longer a question of will the enemy break through, but which will kill us first, the army outside or the conditions inside, and the besiegers know it. They don't need to storm the walls. Why risk ladders and towers and mines if you can just wait for food to run out, tempers to fray, some starving gate guard to make a desperate deal? Occasionally, messengers sent out to negotiate return with offers. Surrender and live as slaves. Refuse and watch your children starve. That's not a weapon you can aim or parry. That's a weapon that eats away at you day by day. And this is where all the other siege engines plug in. Trebuchets and cannons destroy food stores and wells. Plague corpses spread sickness in already weakened populations. Fire weapons burn fields and granaries. Mines blow up the one strong section of wall everyone trusted. Each device is just a different way of helping time do its job. In some legendary sieges, people held out for months, even years. Others broke much sooner. But in nearly all of them, by the time the gates finally opened, the city inside was already dead in all the ways that mattered. Economy ruined, families shattered, survivors traumatized for the rest of their lives. The besieging army just had to walk in and finish the paperwork. That's why, at number 1, the most terrifying siege weapon ever built isn't a machine. It's the decision to turn a city into a sealed box and wait until everything inside that box screams, starves, or breaks. From walking wooden towers and door-smashing rams to magic flames that burned on water, from gravity-powered rock launchers and corpse catapults to gigantic cannons, rocket arrow storms, tunnels that exploded underneath your feet, and finally the slow, suffocating horror of a city being starved to death. Siege warfare shows just how creative humans can be when the goal is simply make them give up or make sure they never see another sunrise. Modern weapons might be faster, louder, and more high-tech, but the logic is still hauntingly similar. Isolate, overwhelm, break the will to resist. So, which of these siege weapons creeped you out the most? The flaming sea? The corpse-flinging trebuchets? Or the idea that the scariest weapon is just time and hunger? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more dark corners of history like this, we've also covered the deadliest battles no one talks about, the most ruthless warlords in human history, and the deadliest plagues in human history. Thanks for watching. And next time you walk past an old city wall on vacation, just remember, if those stones could talk, they'd probably tell you about weapons we're very lucky we'll never have to face.